Hi everyone, this is a market recap for Thursday, August 27th. Um, so today was a pretty good day for the market overall. The big thing that people were waiting for were Nvidia earnings, which were a hit, at least in terms of their reaction. Um, and this was kind of the potential catalyst that could reignite the momentum AI trade. And that was at least my opinion. I think that was the general consensus. And to some extent, did we see that today? Semis did put in a move today. Like if we look at, um, what's a good example? A lot of like an INTC was green. A TSM was honestly pretty strong today. An AVGO is pretty strong. I mean, most of the semis, I don't mind this analog devices chart. However, I don't like where the 50 is. If this was converged with the other moving averages, I think this would look pretty good. But you look at the memory names like an MU and a SanDisk. I mean, you know they're closing flat. Like they gapped and faded all day today, and that's generally not what you want to see. However, that doesn't mean that these are still gonna fail or anything. Frankly, I think they could gap an MU up overnight and uh, you know rip this thing higher. Although not too sure. It's gapping down a little bit right now. The one thing is, if you look at the weekly chart on a stock like MU, we could continue higher here, but it also wouldn't be unusual for us to pull back in kind of the 820 region, um, right? Just backfill a little bit more. And that again, that's not nothing wrong with that. When you get a ginormous move like you got with a stock like MU or SNDK, right? Like that, there's nothing wrong with a stock doing that. Um, but yeah, so not great reaction as far as memory. And honestly, the semis weren't anything to write home about either. Like a stock like Marvell, right? This stock has been showing relative strength in it, and it didn't really do much. In fact, it's closing red 1.5% on the day. Really, as far as relative strength stocks go, I mean, to me, this light is just really, really good. This LITE. Again, not confident this is going to provide an entry. This is just such a choppy stock. But if it ever does, I will certainly like to trade this, especially if we start to see a rotation back into maybe some of the photonics names. Although the photo ETF certainly doesn't look very good right now. Um, so as far as like sectors that really stood out today, I mean, the obvious one is the IGV, right? This is like the very, very obvious one. I believe this was primarily in response to earnings on Okta. And frankly, like if you were watching this out of the open, this wouldn't have been a bad washout trade to take. The one problem um, is the fact that like the way that I like to trade these washouts and these opening range kind of gap up trades uh, are by waiting for a washout and then buying the reclaim of like the opening print. But the problem with a stock like this is look how large this washout is. If you're setting your stop loss, you have a five and at low of day, which is a reasonable place to set your stop. You now have a 5.5% stop, and that's just really large. I mean, this is a $9.30 stop, and the ATR is before this day. Well, on this day, I guess you could just include it as 850. That's more than 1x its ATR, and that's just not good, generally speaking. So I didn't trade an Okta, but this definitely reignited a lot of the software names. I mean, just look at the IGV. This is a very impressive move. Um, I think this thing will be at all-time highs in no time. You look at a Palantir today. I think this provided one of the most reasonable entries as far as the software space goes. I wasn't really watching it. This is a fairly clean flag, but it's not. I wasn't like super confident. Um, I didn't really have a super obvious level to buy it over. I wanted to buy it over like 181 would have been reasonable, but I don't know. It's okay, but this to me was one of the more reasonable charts to enter in as far as the software space goes, because a lot of the again, there's not really much to, you know, there's not very many places to really cleanly buy any of the software names. Um, Palantir was kind of the exception, right? But this is a pretty substantial gap up across the board in a lot of these, huge relative weakness in the Spotify. Huge. I mean, this thing is just absolutely like, I thought maybe this would ignite it, but no, that's just huge relative weakness. Um, but most of the software names did very, very, very well today. Um, NBIS and CoreWeave, they're in my software uh, ETF. They are software names, but these belong more to like the NeoCloud AI trade than just the general software names, which is why they're not moving like the others. The JFrog, really nice day today, right? But like how I don't really know. Like how do you buy this thing? Frankly, if you were watching this and you bought this over this pivot, I think that would have been a reasonable trade. You didn't get the washout, but this is at least not gapping up so high that it makes your risk totally unmanageable. Um, and at this point, you have like a $4 stop loss, not that bad. I think this could have been a reasonable trade. But again, like this is definitely a market to be buying things off weakness, and that's really kind of all that I'm waiting for. Um, I did buy a new position on the 25th, so 2 days ago on GH. I thought this looked pretty good off the 20-day, right? This is kind of the level I was calling out the day prior, which we got. A bit of a nothing day today. I'm not too concerned about it. If we can form one more higher low here, that would be really, really nice. I would consider even adding more. And then, hopefully we can get a breakout. Although the XLV and the healthcare stocks are pretty ugly today, especially toward the close, if I remember correctly. Sort of, yeah, you just kind of unwind. Um, but I was in an LLY that stopped me out. I'm no longer in this. This thing stopped me out yesterday. I mean, this is just disgusting price action. I'm really, really disappointed in this stock. We should have gone on the 25th, and perhaps I greeted my stop loss a little by, I sold it when we broke 1200, right? Keep in mind, I'm in this thing from the 14th. I made like 1R on this trade. Like, this is where I'm selling it. This is where I bought it. So I'm making like $30 of, price. It went from, oh, not even. I'm making like $20. It went from 1180 to 1200. Again, that's just the way I trade. I hate trimming into these moves, although this is the market to be doing that in. I mean, it's just so choppy. And when we had an mRNA be breaking out on the 25th, and then you have a Lilly trading like that, I mean, that's disgusting. Like this was an mRNA on the 25th, and this was the XBI on the 25th, and this was almost essentially the XLV on the 25th, although, oops, not quite as strong. But I mean, just the relative weakness in a stock like this is just insane. So yeah, I got stopped out of this for a very small winner. Surprise, surprise. Same story with MT. When it stopped me out here, and then it's off to the races, and then I want to re-add here, and it gaps up, and there's no entry. Lovely. So it's just so hard not to just be insanely frustrated in this market. Um, I'm just finding it so hard to get positioned. I'll probably upload like a month recap because I took just an unbelievable amount of losses this month, and it's really thanks to Ethereum that I'm not red. It wouldn't be even without Ethereum, it wouldn't have been a big red month, um, because I've been in several trades that have panned out and worked, but by a lot more than my losers do in damages, if that makes any sense. Essentially, my winners are substantially larger than my losers. But this month, I just took an unacceptable amount of losers, and that's the truth. And I every month I'd say I take about anywhere from 3 to 4 trades that I look back on, and I'm like, there was just absolutely no reason to trade that. Like that was just I don't yeah, that was just dumb. And this year, I think I'm at like a 7. I think I've taken 7 just really, really dumb trades. And I've taken a lot more losers that I think were fairly justified. Um, but it's thanks to an Ethereum, it's thanks to a Brinker International. I closed out my HF Sinclair position this month. I was in it from the 8th of July, and got some nice trims up here, and then closed it when we broke the lows of the 27th. So I got some nice winners that definitely made up for my losers, but I mean, this is just truly like this is probably one of the most infuriating markets that I have traded in the last 2 years. And it sucks to say that because there certainly are things moving, but I don't want to sound like a broken record. I'm going to repeat myself every day. Again, it's impossible to get in positioned in the things that are moving. If you're not buying the freaking lows of the lows on gold or crypto or uh, you know that's it. I mean, copper and well, copper not really the lows, but I mean, how do you get positioned in a base like this, right? It's disgusting. Um, or if you look at an FCX, I mean, how do you get positioned in a base like this? It's disgusting. So it's like there's just no place to buy into copper. There's no place to buy into gold. There was no place to buy into nuclear for that matter. Although nuclear energy, uranium names aren't really doing that. They're doing okay. Um, fresh trend. We'll see what happens. But healthcare has been very, very tricky to get positioned in, even though the sector as a whole has been doing fairly well. Uh, it's again just like I don't know how one gets positioned into any of the healthcare names, um, you know that I've seen. Right? I mean, I'm trying a GH. I'm trying this, although frankly, this is a good one to just probably bump my stop up to break even already. I mean, I really don't want to lose on this at this point. But we'll see what happens with this. Um, oh yeah, like if you're not buying coal off the lows, right? If you're not buying, you know, ginormous gap ups in software, then that's it. I mean, the coal names, which is what I'm cycling through right now, did really, really nicely today. But like look at these moves, right? I mean, there's no place to buy this here. It just went straight up. If you look at like a Warrior Met Coal, right? I mean, this thing just went straight up. Um, and it's the same with gold. And it's the same with nuclear energy, right? If you look at the NLR, um, it just kind of is up. I mean, this to be fair, NLR did provide a reasonable place to get involved. So nuclear energy is not a great example to use, um, but the theme holds true in pretty much every other sector. Um, and then again, yeah, if you want to buy gap ups on software, go ahead. Like that's your thing, but Uh, for me, I just cannot find optimal places to get involved, and even in the places that I am buying, they just aren't working, right? MT, I mean, this thing did work, put in 12% off my entry, and then it gapped down, and I stopped out. And then you know, uh, Eli Lilly, right? I don't want to. I'll be done complaining here soon, but it's frustrating. Um, But beyond that, I mean, there's not really like anything on my watch list besides an MPC. I think looks pretty good. This is a pretty nice flag. Although buying a breakout all the way up here is like a little questionable on a stock and an oil name. Like you really don't want to buy any sort of extension or extended stocks in like commodities. Like that's I don't know. Generally not the best idea. At least from my own personal experience. But I think it looks pretty good. Oh, an interesting thing today. Uh, if anybody watched my uh, last market recap, I talked about this stock, and I called this move right here, which is pretty cool. I actually tried to short this, but Schwab had no shares to locate, uh, which is highly unfortunate. I didn't try. I would not have shorted this with a big position, because these stocks are so sketch. Like these are like the sketchiest of the sketch. But yeah, we totally cracked down, dropped 90%, and yeah, pretty incredible. When people say the market is like efficient and there's no edge, I mean, like just look at a stock like this. I mean, I literally called this to a T, and I did the same thing with this stock last year. Like, and we were seeing a ton of these names last year. We were seeing a ton of these names, and this was just no different. Um, like this is like pure manipulation. Like this is just disgusting behavior. Hopefully the stock gets delisted, although I'm sure it won't, um, because I don't know. They just have really been slacking with these manipulation stocks. I hope no retail traders were caught in this. I hope no, these moves they happen all the time in stocks like this. Just know what you're buying, know what you're buying. But this is pretty disgusting move. Um, Beyond that, oh, I think Brinker International is building out a base. We'll see if it can hold these lows. Honestly, if we lose these lows, I'm probably going to sell the rest of my position. Um, but I think today, had it closed better, could have been a good ad. But it closed pretty weak, so I left it alone. But yeah, I mean that's about it. Essentially, moral of the story is money didn't really flow heavily back into the AI or memory names yet. Although, again, I don't think a stock like MU looks bad, right? I don't think MU looks bad. I don't think a Marvell looks bad. I don't think a Light looks bad. I think these are all look pretty good. Um, Money did flow heavily into software today. You have the big thing was Okta. You have a Palantir, right? Microsoft had a decent day today, right? All the software names had pretty solid day today. Coal names had a pretty good day today, right? You look at most of these are pretty strong. Although they are often pretty thin names, but still pretty cool to track. Um, Gold is pulling back a little bit, if I remember correctly. Yeah, pulling back a little bit. Bitcoin and Ethereum uh, kind of chopping around a little bit. We'll see what Ethereum does here. Not the best close in the world, although it's not doing anything wrong. Volume wasn't particularly high these last couple of days, which is awesome. You don't really want to see it this intense volume. But if we can build out a little bit more of a base, that would be awesome. Um, but crypto still looks really good. Nothing wrong with crypto. Uh, and then, am I leaving anything out? I don't think so. I think that's about it. Again, just in Ethereum, GH, and ETH. Would like to add off GH or add to GH if we can form another higher low by the close. Um, Other than that, just gonna let this thing do its thing. I probably will bump my stop up to break even, and then I'll cut ETH if we break this low here, and then nothing to do with Ethereum. So yeah, that's about it. That's all I got, and thank you for watching.